G stands for innovation, right? When you really think about it, from Edison to our global research center in New York State, to aerospace, to the creation of Additive, now Equilibrium Additive, innovation runs in our veins, part of our DNA. The thing I would say, though, is as we continue to innovate, that's not going to change. Our focus is how do we bring all those ideas, that innovation, to the market in commercially available products and services, and products and services that create value for our customers in repeatable and reliable outcomes. And I think that could be said that's true for the industry also, but that's how we're trying to think. Is bring value to our customers every day through what we foster in terms of innovation. So innovation is part of who we are, and that's not going to change, but we want to make sure that we bring it to the market in a way that we create true value for our customers.
There's usually a large gap between like what is possible today with someone who has the best tools and all the knowledge, and then what is actually widely in use in practice. And so it takes time for that adoption to happen. And so we've focused on unlocking sort of more value in 3D printing by making the technology more accessible. And accessibility is really two things we focus on. One is the entry cost. If you can't afford it, you're not going to use it. But equally important is ease of use. So we've got to work on all those. And then especially material properties, I would say. When you look at the parts that maybe could be printed for other, and like what's between them and being a printed part, materials is like most often the limiting factor. And the materials range available in 3D printing is a small subset of the materials range available in other manufacturing processes. So yeah, those are kind of our main focus areas.
Okay. And does anybody else have any kind of additional thoughts on that, on where we're at today? Do you kind of agree that's a good picture of where the additive industry is?
A major transition in our industry. You've got entrants coming in from China that are taking a lot of market share in the desktop space. You've got some folks that have pretty attractive products in the laser side, in the particle fusion side, that also look probably threatening. If I'm not in that business, but they look kind of everyone talks about it, and I think it's time for the companies that have the market share to like catch up or put products that kind of match those specs, because at the end of the day, the customers are buying something based on what the product can do.
Just say if there was a regional conflict in the Taiwan Straits right now, we would run out of long-range missiles in a week. That's a staggering statistic. That's scary. And then in addition to that, and Rick and I were talking, and I know Rick, I think you're probably going to talk about this as well, but submarine industrial base, we're getting our butts kicked. Shipbuilding is 270 times what it is in the US, and everybody in this room can probably contribute to a couple of those factors. And then there's like next gen vehicles for the Army, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And where we see is how do we take what happened in space, where we're able to help move through that process quickly and move into full production, and use that as a horizontal use case to move into defense and help educate the market on where you fit in. And this is where we feel we fit in, and we also feel we have a patriotic duty.
As I was saying earlier, I think we cannot find all of the applications for 3D printing. They exist in so many places, in the corners of so many companies, and so the tools have to be available for people to try them out. There are every little part that someone's designing, someone is making a choice of how do I make this, and there are better and worse choices for that part. There are processes that might be cheaper or faster or give better performance or something like that, but they can't dedicate infinite resources to making that choice perfectly. So making sure that they're familiar enough with what we do, that they have even the chance of making that choice, that is really critical. And I think this is what you see in the the history again of like powerful tool technologies. Like in computing, no computing company ever was able to, they all focused on building platforms and APIs and things that other people can build on top of, and recognize that you can't own every application. Maybe you can focus on a few bigger ones and go deeper there. But I think that sort of platform approach and supporting an ecosystem of innovation is not present enough in 3D printing.
Focus on aerospace, for example, in medical, and that space, reliability and repeatability, tough word for me in English, but is critical, right? And that's because they're regulated environments. That's been where we've been focusing, right? To make sure that our products deliver what they need, and reliable and repeatability, and those regulated environments are paramount. So again, it's all focus, value, all those things. People have chased bigger format because that is a need. We serve industries in priority that need that sense of reliability and repeatability. So that's how we create value.
I do agree. I think standardization of software out there and the solution is definitely key. There isn't a standardization, there's a big gap. So having it just within our own solution or within just our own company, it's beneficial to us, but for the industry, it does need to be a problem that's solved rather quickly.
Done a lot of work with the U.S. Air Force on sustainment. They had huge issues where their fleet of aircraft got grounded because they couldn't find a supplier anymore. Can't find the parts, can't fly. So I think additive, we always talk about additive as cool geometries that people can make with traditional manufacturing, but it does solve some of the problems of sustainment. And this week I met a huge utility company in energy, and the same issue, right? They have massive infrastructure with a supply base that no longer exists. The drawings no longer exist. So I think additive can solve that as long as I go back, it's again about value, right? So you don't need to make that cool part, but if you don't have a supplier base anymore, then additive can play a vibrant role, and we've done it with the U.S. Air Force here in the U.S. So.
Having the conversations with. And so if you think of the defense as like, that's the company, and the Pentagon is the headquarters, or the DoD is the headquarters, like if you're talking to the CEO of that company CEO is gonna tell you they see additive as a solution to fill those parts, fill those shells, fill those supplies. The submarine industrial base, just that alone in the shipbuilding, there's not the parts on the shelf, and the casting houses don't exist, or the access to materials are not there. The skilled labor forces are dropping. We have to reskill our labor force. We have to replenish this opportunity in our country around the industrial base. There's a massive opportunity there. If you have, and you also have to have the right mindset. As I said, everybody in this room, if we come together to help solve this problem, to help our Defense Department solve this problem, that's what they're looking for. They need us to start working together and figure this out. We're working with a couple of primes right now to go through these processes to prove that it can be centralized. We can do this, and it is going from multiple parts. Take eight parts that make up one part. Being able to print that in one part. And if it is used for defense purposes, it may not need to go through different qualifications or different processes. It depends on what it's going to be used for. But it's the immediacy, it's the access, it's the need of it is so great that there really isn't another way to do it. And these, like you said, these files don't exist. Like take some of these planes, like the B-52 bombers or things like. You have to scan those parts, you have to recreate it. You're not going to be able to go and recast it. It would just be way too much money, and it would take way too long. It's really the only way.